kulumbanya alikuwa kilumba umone boy kwesu febale na kusama panika mbono kufuala matai temukalale na fiarirwe mbona majeke tokulepa andi bonali kwata kwesu chabanga bana bandumba basyaisibo ko bafuma etinda byo kulumbanya alikwata ne chirumba umone boy kwesu febale na kusama panika boy kwesu febale na kusama panika ne fomushisana shaktika pamwe waenda kalamba kwa washibirisha kumulungu nibamwasa kombe na shitembo shimishibirisha kabangulu nibangulu ena bamulongwe ne fomushisana shaktika pamwe waenda kalamba kwa washibirisha kumulungu Sakombe na shitembo shimbishirisha babangulu nibangulu ena bamulongwe kama na basongola meno ena bakwabo nintambi kama na basongola meno ena bakwabo nintambi kama na bampolo tokumenso nabo bende kwabo nintambi kama na bampolo tokumenso nabo bende kwabo nintambi kama na misisi ya pemu ena bakwabo nintambi kama na misisi ya pemu ena bakwabo nintambi nangu bapika wile kisungu mukalale mwena temulyabo nangu bapika wile kisungu mukalale mwena temulyabo alamungu nebo ekwesu febabele no kusamba panika inombanu mbulene mikoa ekwisi befyo na ikala inombanu mbulene mikoa ekwisi befyo na ikala batata nebube na mumba batani nekisiki ukwali pamayo bena balumbu nanguntiri abena kasimu nombo kukonka nentambi nemwine ndimwina kasimu umumba nebo ekwesu febabele no kusamba panika inombanu mbulene mikoa ekwisi befyo na ikala inombanu mbulene mikoa ekwisi befyo na ikala batata nebube na mumba batani nekisiki ukwali pamayo bena balumbu nanguntiri abena kasimu nombo kukonka nentambi nemwine ndimwina kasimu umumba nebo ekwesu febabele no kusamba panika Good evening and welcome to this exciting and mind-boggling presentation of the Linda Banks Show on TV Bakwetu. And I'm your host, Linda Banks. Now, tonight's show is going to be a little bit different from what you guys are used to, in that we have several guests, believe it or not. It will be very interactive and perhaps a little spirited. So I would say snuggle up, grab yourself a cup of tea, call your neighbor and tell them that Bakwetu is on. And if you feel so inclined, please do kindly share the link. And don't be shy. Go ahead and use those lovely emojis at the bottom of your screen when you hear something you like, because I'm sure you're going to be hearing a lot of things that you like. So in tonight's program, we're going to be exploring the fourth and fifth estate, and that is the media. So we're going to be looking at the role of the media in politics. So throughout the program, I will be joined by various guests who have been meticulously chosen for their expertise and experience in the media fraternity. So some of these guests, just to give you an idea, some of the guests are going to be Mr. Thabo Kawana, Madam Laura Miti, a former ambassador to Australia, Mr. George Kanyamla Zulu, ex-journalists, now political blogger, Kalani Machima, ex-ZNBC legendary broadcasters. Oh my goodness. We've got a literally an array of these broadcasters. So we from Madam Chavala Chimpampa to Mr. Chela Katwishi, Madam Doreen Mukanzo is going to join us as well. And last but not the least, perhaps we might just be lucky and be joined by Kenel Panji Kaunda. So I did tell you that it's going to be a different kind of Bakwetu. And of course, at the end, as usual, we're going to have the Bakwetu family join us. Now, before we get started, could you kindly share the link to a few friends and just let me know where you're watching us from so that we can say a very quick hello where you're watching us from. That will be amazing. Okay. I'm just beginning to see some of these comments trickle in. And yes, as usual, make sure that you send your questions, and we're going to give you an opportunity to come on and ask some questions, okay? And if you're shy, just send the questions and we'll read them. Now, in the past, many of us got our news from newspapers, from the radio, and of course, from the television. These provided us with what was going on in the world and in our own neighborhood at particular set times throughout the day. In the recent years, however, the 24-hour news cycle and our ability to be up to date at the click of a button was born. We're like we want everything instantaneously. So now, as a result of this need, there's a new type of media that has arisen, and obviously Wakwetu is one of those, which is mainly social media based. And now this social media-based type of media is what they're referring to as the fifth estate. So there's the fourth estate. Now the social media is being referred to as the fifth estate. So mainstream media has been traditionally referred to as the fourth estate, as I said, an entity primarily that acts as a check on government holds governments and political organizations and agencies accountable to the public. And in tonight's broadcast, we have a government representative who is going to help us unpack this topic. As I mentioned, Mr. Kawana is going to be joining us in a few moments. And with a few other guests who are going to help us unpack this topic. Now, more recently, especially during the August elections, you will understand that social media has become increasingly relied upon by the public for news and information. For instance, hundreds of you were glued to TV Bakwetu, holding on to Dear Life on Facebook for some reliable political updates. So this led to social media being duped as the society as the fifth estate, as we mentioned, a source of information and news outside the usual mainstream media. But playing the same role as a watchdog, keeping governments accountable, providing those so-called checks and balances. Okay, so we do know that mainstream as well as social media both are quite imperfect. They're imperfect conveyors of facts because they decide what you share with the public and what political issues you want to emphasize, therefore limiting available information on other topics of equal importance. However, social media has been more vulnerable to abuse by their owners. So if you've got a blog, you can just type in, spout whatever you want, and people take it as gospel, as we've seen a few political leaders doing exactly that, which sometimes can mislead people. So to help me unpack this, I'm joined by a lady who needs little to no introduction at all, a prolific activist, a human rights defender, Madam Laura Miti. So Madam Laura Miti is not new to TV Bakwetu. She's been here before. And the last time we were talking about her charity. So she does quite a lot of charity work, and she will be joining us in a few moments. But in the meantime, I'm going to introduce a man who actually doesn't need any introduction. I remember him as Professor DJ CJ Chelakatushi. I used to recite this in my bedroom when I was growing up, believe it or not. Welcome to TV Bakwetu.
Thank you very much, Linda, and welcome to the guests that are watching this very interesting program.
Lovely. And another legendary broadcaster from ZNBC is Chabala Chimpampa. Chabs, welcome to TV Bakwetu. Can you hear me, Chabala?
Hi, Linda. Thank you very much for your warm. I think it's the storm here. Can you hear it? I can hear. I think the volume is going.
Yes. Lovely.
Yes.
I can see
yes.
We have been joined by Carry on.
Yes, good to be here.
Thank you. I can see we have been joined by Miss Laura Miti. Madam Miti, welcome to, not welcome, welcome back. You have been here. You're muted.
I say thank you very much. Sorry, I had a bit of a blip there.
That's okay. I noticed that. So in the United Kingdom, we have storms. So if you hear wind howling, please just ignore that. And if I suddenly disappear off the screen again, it's because of the storm. I was just about to introduce another interesting young man who I will let him introduce himself, actually. Kalani, welcome to TV Bakwetu.
Thank you so much, Linda. I don't know why everybody's being introduced, only me to introduce myself. Well, it's fine. Don't worry. Okay.
There's a reason why I've done that. There's a reason why I've done that. So you used to work for Prime TV, a very vocal person against the past regime, which landed you in some very deep troubles. So I think you might be the best person to actually explain who you are.
Well, my name is Kawana Mchimba, and just a correction, I'm not an ex-journalist, as you had mentioned.
No,
I'm still practicing journalism. Thank you. At first, you said ex-journalist, but I just want to make it clear that I'm still practicing. Sometimes I just like to cross some lines here and there, but I'm still practicing. Yes. So my name is Kawana Mchimba. I'm a journalist for 11 years, and I want to say I'm humbled to be on the same platform with CJ Chelakatushi, Chabala. These are great personalities whom we've grown watching and seeing on television. So I'm humbled to be in their presence. As for Rola Miti, I think we are together breathing the same air. So with that, I can only say good evening to you.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to add a young man who lives in South Australia, I believe, Patrick. Patrick, welcome to TV Bakwetu. Welcome back. You have been here before as well.
Thank you so much.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm really good. I just set my alarm and I woke up not so long ago. So
what's the time there? Because obviously you're on the other side. What's the time there now?
It is 6:20 at the moment. Sorry for the feedback. I've just put my kettle on. I'll mute myself and I'll make a cup of coffee.
Get yourself a cup of tea, and I'll remove you from the screen. Go and get yourself sorted. I understand it's very early, and you come and join us in a little while. And we have another incredible man. We've got such a rich pedigree on this panel. Mr. George Zulu, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Linda. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming. Now, Mr. George, again, I will let you tell us a bit more about yourself, because he has been in the Foreign Service for many years, and his last posting was Australia. Actually, Patrick, you might remember Mr. Zulu. And I believe we have been joined by the man of the moment. Better late than never. Mr. Kawana, good evening, sir.
Good evening all.
How was your trip? You managed to get home all right?
Yes, managed to get home, but also was very, very hungry, so I had to grab a quick Kishima.
You're having a bit of Mishima live on the air. That is serious commitment. I'm impressed. Could I kindly just ask all the panelists to mute themselves if they're not speaking? Because of the storm, we seem to be getting some feedback. Okay. So shall we leave you to have some Mishima, or are you all right to get started?
Yeah, just give me 5 minutes. I'm finishing up.
You're finishing up?
Yes.
Okay, lovely. So we will get started with Madam Laura. Could you just explain to us, as well as the viewers, what you think the role of the Fifth Estate is, and how you think the Hichilema and Nalumango administration is faring in this aspect, please?
I would say that the role of the Fifth Estate, if by that we're talking about media spaces that are not what were traditionally known. So the ability of people, bloggers, journalists, citizens really, to use the internet especially to share news, share analysis. I would say that its role is huge in politics.
Sorry, could I kindly ask Mr. Zulu and Mr. Kawana to mute yourselves, please, so that we don't get the feedback. And Valora, your sound is a bit low. Are you able to increase the volume?
Wait.
Mute this thing.
Okay.
That's
is that better?
Yeah, that's so much.
Okay. Okay. So I was saying that the role of the Fifth Estate, talking about the ability of journalists, bloggers, citizens to use the internet especially to share news and analysis away from traditional newspapers and radio. That has become really huge, much bigger, I would say, than politicians would like it to be. So you will find, I think for a long time, there was resistance to the idea of the Fifth Estate, and also denial of the power of the Fifth Estate. I would say that in Zambia, and I think also across the world, I can take two countries, maybe the United States and Zambia. The last two elections were very much were very much influenced by what we call the Fifth Estate. And so the fact that news is now so readily available, people do not have to wait for so-called experts, first of all, to share it, and then also to analyze it, means that politics are in trouble, because when you have so-called 9 experts, or you have just about anybody able to share news and broadcast it, it means that at any given time, the audience and citizens are having to consume all manner of stuff and somehow wade through it and find what is true and what is not true. But I think the short answer is that the influence is huge.
Yeah, you're right. The influence is absolutely huge. I'm going to ask the same question to Mr. Kawana. What do you think the role of the Fifth Estate is? And for you specifically, how do you feel your government is faring? Especially, actually, before we dive into this, I'll just take this moment to say a huge congratulations. The last time I spoke to you, we had a conversation like this. You were in a completely different role. And at that time, you did admit that the New Dawn government is doing all right. It's faring all right. But there were a few things that perhaps they could have done to improve things. So first of all, many congratulations. You were last here, went back, you got a huge promotion, which was incredible. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you very much. I think to answer your question, the fifth estate, which is the media, has a critical role to play in governance, and that it is a mirror of our society. It reflects to all of us what is going on the ground, and especially to government. Ours is to monitor through the media what the people are saying, and we're able to hear divergent views from the people. We're able to know what Miti has said. We're able to know what Kawana has said. It is through the media. So we always make sure that we keep the media free and untampered with. Also, we have taken a deliberate approach to ensure that the media is protected. I think you have heard my minister being very emphatic on the fact that the media ought to be protected. Therefore, we will not allow police or cadres or any other parties to harm the journalists as they are doing their work. They will be allowed to do their work professionally. The minister has also assured the media that they are free to do their work, but that freedom comes with responsibility. And that is what we are doing now, ensuring that the media is operating free in an environment that is not hindered in any way by either violence or intimidation. And also, we have begun in earnest to ensure that we bring to fruition the famous or now infamous Access to Information Bill, which we called stakeholders' views 6 weeks ago. And just last week on Thursday and Friday, we were able to bring stakeholders on board, and we had a workshop, and we have panel beaten the bill, and so that whatever is reflected in there is a true representation of what the stakeholders feel and carries their aspirations. So the new Dawn administration is on track to ensure that the media operates freely. And we understand the media, especially the private media, because those are the mediums with which we use to get where we are today, to be able to penetrate and send our message to the people of Zambia. So today we are where we are because of usage of the private media. Therefore, we will be the last people to try and gag the media and the people. That is why the voices of criticism are very high, because the people are free to criticize. And we love it when they criticize, because we learn a lot from such.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Madam Laura, you were smiling slightly as Mr. Kawana was talking. Do you have anything to add to what he's just said? And do you subscribe to this bill? What are your views about it? You're muted.
I'm intrigued to hear that the ATI has been discussed by stakeholders, and I'm not very sure who was there from civil society. I've unmuted. You can hear me?
Yes.
I'm not muted. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was saying that I'm intrigued I'm intrigued to hear that the access to information bill was discussed. So it's good news. I didn't know it had gone that far, and it'd be interesting to know who was there from civil society.
Mr. Kawana, who was there from civil society, and at what level was this bill discussed? Obviously, Madam Laura Miti doesn't seem to know that this happened.
Yeah, no, she's unaware, but maybe if she asked around, she'll be aware. There were many players from civil society. Guess Miranda was there, McDonald Chipenzi was there, and all non-civil society players and actors were there. Media houses were there, the government was there. So if Madam Laura took time to ask her colleagues like Chipenzi, like Guess Miranda, and so on, they'll be able to brief her. It was a fully packed 2-day workshop looking at the inputs, and the various stakeholders were there. So I'm surprised also that she didn't know. Maybe you don't listen to the news.
So you're both surprised.
Yeah, because
how come this information missed you?
Even the official opening was there on news. It was a news item on almost all media houses. Mukabungwa news, mama. you miss out things.
Laura, any addition to what Mr. Kawana has said? Would you like to make a comment on what Mr. Kawana has said? I think she's having technical problems, which is such a shame because I'm sure she has views about not being aware on what was transpiring. We're going to give her a little bit of time to try and reboot her device. Now, Mr. Kawana, I just very interested in finding out how you think. Yes. Go for it.
Okay, so like I said, I will find out. I'm not complaining. I'm just intrigued. I mean, it's the first I'm hearing of it, and it's something I thought I might have heard about. So I didn't see it on any of the civil society conversations. So usually when something like this is happening, we know who's going and when they've been invited. So I'm quite intrigued to know that we've gone that far. So don't worry, Mr. Kawana, I'll find out.
Good. So, among his many hats that you wear, Miss Miti, you're also a columnist. Could you just tell us a little bit about that and how you manage to be objective in your writing, considering that you're a prolific activist of several kind of causes? How do you manage to remain objective?
Well, I was a columnist. I'm no longer an active columnist. I suppose I am a columnist just
once
in the
a columnist.
Yes. So I'm not actively writing in any paper right now, but I still share my thoughts mostly on my Facebook page. Objectivity has never been a problem with me. I suppose it's just a question of what is the truth? What do I think? What do I think about this? What do I genuinely think about this? What is fair comment? And the result of that is quite a few times friends will be shocked at what I am able to say about them when they hold high office. So my view is, as long as you hold high office or public office, you could be my best friend, I'll make comment, which I think is fair and never personal. But if my best friend was corrupt, or if my best friend was incompetent and they were in public office, I'd say it. And if someone that I don't particularly like, because there's some people out there that maybe rub you the wrong way, but even for them, when they are right or when things are going, it's not unfair what's happening to them. At the same time, I think there must be fair comment. So my sense is, when you write something, you should be able to say it to the person's face. If you left two of you in a room, you should be able to say what you write to the person's face. If you could never say it to them, then don't write it, because then usually you're just being a coward hiding behind the screen.
Well, I must say, you don't hold any prisoners. I read everything that you write. I get a lot of things forwarded to me as soon as it's posted, so which is quite interesting. And in your response there, you just talked about incompetence. If someone is incompetent, if they're a friend, you're quite open to actually tell them that they are incompetent. Now, just talking of incompetence, do you think the New Dawn government's media team is competent?
No. I think it's terrible.
Elaborate.
So, first of all, you don't know who's responsible for communication. They should, in a government, they should always think this is the person that is the primary voice. So the UPND government, the government right now, you're never sure as to who is going to explain something, set out what's going on, and that kind of thing. So you have different voices all the time. And then they also seem to have this inability to explain things. Like they're always on the back foot, responding
like quenching
to
fires.
Stuff. Yes, exactly. Like there's damage control. there's so much that they could run with. On any given day, government should be running with stuff. And then when something negative happens, there's still this stuff that they're running with. So right now, I think the biggest problem is the fact that there is nobody who is able to run with the messaging, and also and the person you choose to run with the messaging should be specially picked. They should be articulate. They should be very knowledgeable. So they should not make mistakes. They should be able to collect all this information, and of course, there's a level of charisma that the public speaker should be. You can't just get anybody. It's unfortunately, it's a charismatic position. Right now, there's nobody that's charismatic, if you see what I mean. So that's why there's this sense, this one is talking today, that person is talking tomorrow. Yeah, and there are just too many of them, just too many.
Okay, so who do you think should be talking, Miss Miti?
That's not my call, that's the president's call. I don't know. The president should decide. The president should pick. Okay, the Minister of Information, for example. So for example, if you are the Minister of Information and the president's spokesperson, these two, between the two of them, they're the only ones we should be hearing. And on party matters, it should be someone from the UPND. So whoever the spokesperson for the party is should speak, 3 people. But on government, I would say the Minister of Information and the president's spokesperson. And between the two of them, they shouldn't be stepping on each other's feet either, on each other's toes and in each other's space. They should be well streamlined. Every week, information coming in. We hear about the president traveling. We hear it from the PF. And then we hear, no, actually, it's true. He is traveling. Oh, come on, that kind of thing. That's just a straightforward thing.
Okay, thank you so much. Another follow-up question. So, do you think that the spokesperson and the minister are stepping on each other's feet?
No. I think there are just too many voices. Right now, I don't even know who there is no one voice. So I don't think they're stepping on each other's feet. They are both not doing a good job. And then, of course, there's Mr. Kawana, who comes out sometimes on the side. And then tomorrow you hear, hey, Mr. Mwetwa. If you see what I mean. Mm-hmm. Actually, you can choose. The government can choose who they want. They can even say the one who's going to speak for them is the Minister of Transport if they want. Can they just give us one voice? You see, we don't really mind. We are the public. We don't decide how these things happen. And also, as you know, over time you can get used to anything. So, like I say, it could be the Minister of Transport, and it becomes the spokesperson. While that would be irregular, or should I say, not expected, we could get accustomed to it as long as they were doing a good job. Right now, the messaging is very poor. And to be truthful, the messaging was poor even when UPND was in the opposition. Like for many years, you'd sit there and say, okay, kind of thing. They've not improved. They have to. Right now, it's still a honeymoon. The president is extremely very popular. I can see that. I can see on my page that people are reluctant to criticize the president. There's just this sense of he's an extremely popular president. That might not last. There comes a time when you have to message to protect your president, but also to tell the country exactly what you're doing. If you cannot message, and you're being led by everybody from Harry Kalaba, Sean, you name it, any given day, that's a problem.
What are the repercussions of the messaging being distorted?
First of all, after a while, so there are certain gains that can be, okay, let me put it this way. If you're not able to message what you're doing well, for example, what your plans are, especially the difficult plans. So in the first year or two of any government, but especially a government like this one, that is coming into office on the back of a huge debt mountain. We had issues of cadres. We had a real mess. there is no way the first 2 years will be easy. It's just not possible to clean up this level of mess and have it easy. That is why messaging is important. You know, someone has to say to the people, yes, this is what we're doing. This might be difficult right now, but this is where we're going. It's extremely important to have someone owning the message and keeping the public or how can I say it? Keeping the public in tune with what exactly is going on. That's one thing. The other thing is fake news. Like I said, we talked about the fifth estate. Everybody right now is a reporter. In fact, right now, everybody who had gone silent is talking. You know, I see people on my Facebook page that I thought were dead. I mean, literally, I thought they were dead. They've resurrected. So nobody is scared anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
The
because of the freedom of expression.
And it's a good thing. It's a wonderful place to be. But there's a din. There's a noise. Everybody is talking. If the government voice is just part of that noise, what then happens is it feels as though nobody is actually in charge. So I just think that the messaging has to happen. This is what we're doing. This is difficult. This is going well, and that kind of thing. So it's extremely important.
Mr. Kawana, I can't just skim through this and not give you an opportunity to defend yourself. The messaging is poor.
Well, we put out the message to the public and you get feedback from the public. So what she's giving us is feedback from the public. We also get positive feedback from the public. We get negative feedback from the public. We get lukewarm feedback from the public. And what we do is combine all this feedback to come up with a product and a message that will be best accepted. So we do our part. I can't speak for myself because I speak to the public. So I need to hear from the public if they hear me or they don't hear me. If I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing or I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I've read from Madam Lola. She says, TNAs, you are doing nothing. We can't hear you. But I've also heard other people say, oh my goodness, your explanation is clear. At least we know what is going on. So we pick all these and then we put them together and see how we move forward. But what's important is like she has noted, number one, that the people are talking, and those that were even cowed into not talking by the previous regime now are free and able to talk because of the conducive environment we have created. And number two, like she has also said, that anybody can speak. You can even choose, the religious minister, which is defunct, or the transport
minister of transport talking.
People will get accustomed. So I'm just saying to Madam Laura now that, well, there's three people talking, let's get accustomed.
Yeah, but why is messaging so poor? We can't let you get away with that. Yes, you've taken the feedback on. This is 6 months down the line, Mr. Kawana, and she has a point. There are several people in the media department who's doing what? Can you just talk us through the structure of that media team?
Well, the messaging can be said to be poor, but I would disagree.
Okay.
Because we are putting out the message in accordance with saying somebody has to explain to the people that this can't be done now. It can only, that's exactly what we're doing. Just now, I'm coming from Movie TV. And it's exactly what I was putting across to the audience there, that we are dealing with the backlog. We are dealing with, we need to backfill the damaged economy. It is a very deep hole that we need to backfill. And after backfilling, then we put our foundation and begin to build upon it. So it's going to take some time. I've even given the time and said by the time we cross over to 2023, end of 2023, which is next year, we'll begin to see the fruits of what we're doing as a government. We are explaining everything we're doing. We are explaining the reason we've removed subsidies on fuel. We are agreeing with the people that the cost of living is high and what we are doing to bring it down. We are explaining to the people what is happening with free education, for example. We are explaining as far as guidelines are concerned for CDF, for example. So government is talking, but sometimes you can choose not to listen to what government is saying. And, there's nothing we can do about that. But also, we take recognition of the criticism that comes on the floor, and we take that into account. But I can assure you that the messaging is there, and it is improving by the day.
Okay, it's improving by the day. We really expect it to be so much better after 6 months. So hopefully there's going to be some sort of tightening of whatever's going on there, and just have specific people giving feedback to the public. Now, the whole
There are
purpose.
specific people giving feedback to the public. There are specific people giving to the public. I speak to the public. My minister speaks to the public. Anthony speaks to the public. And the Honorable Mwiko speaks to the public.
Yes, Miss
So,
Miti was talking
about the party.
Yeah.
On matters to do with the party, we have the party spokesperson, Honorable Mwiko. On matters to do with state house, we have the presidential spokesperson. On matters to do with the policy for government, we have the chief government spokesperson, who's my boss, the minister. On matters to do with day-to-day around the government, I am there. So let's just get used to the metrics.
Okay, so I think Ms. Miti's point was too many people are giving feedback. We need to have 1 or 2 people. And we know that if something happens, it's this particular person. There seem to be quite a few chefs in the kitchen. You know what they say, too many cooks spoil the what? The broth or something. Now, the whole purpose of this conversation is not necessarily to point fingers, but also to provide help. And as we converse, we're going to get to issues of training. Why do you think the New Dawn government is perhaps, according to Ms. Miti, is not performing according to the way it should perform when it comes to the media department, if you like, you know, the media team? Because I think pretty much everyone knows that the government is doing incredible work, but perhaps it's just being lost in translation. Not many people know about that. So I'm going to pose a question to one of our guests. Kalani, what do you think about the current media situation in the New Dawn?
Well, I've heard from Rola and Thabo. I don't want to go into, I'm a journalist, by the way, and I don't want to go into issues of Mr. Kawana, who's a government official, and Rola Miti, who's an activist. So I think the two know each other very well. But what I can say right now is that as Thabo tried to explain, I think they're doing their level best in terms of information dissemination. But others may also feel that they're not doing enough. But let me speak from the media perspective, not from the activism point of view or the government point of view. From the media perspective, I would say somehow also it's us, the media, who are sleeping. Because, let me take it from either private or public media. Right now, there are a lot of things that are happening. For instance, let's say government has just procured desks for schools across the country. All right. We have Zanis, we have ZNBC, we have Times of Zambia, we have Daily Mail, the Zambia Daily Mail. I think those are their stories now to feast on. Go out there, get that information, help your government to deliver that information. You don't just expect that information to come only from the ministry, only from the government circles. All right. It's our duty also to go and say, you promised this, have you delivered? They're going to tell you, well, we've bought a desk, we promised. The president said that no child should sit on the floor going forward. And the government has just done that. All right. But I'm not seeing those stories coming out. So we should also be, as journalists, proactive in trying to help either sides. Again, if something is not going right, if the government fails to deliver on its promises, it is also our duty, private or public media, to go and remind the government again to say, you promised this. How far have you gone? So it is our duty as the media. I think as media practitioners, we are also sleeping somehow. We should take the blame. We should not be finger pointing at this one is failing, that one is failing. It's also our duty to help these people to deliver. Like the president said, let me refer to the president once again. The president had given, for instance, ZNBC. He told them, go out there, get the news. If you don't want to cover me, you can even keep ZNBC to yourselves. I think the president is on record having said that. If you don't want to cover me, go ahead, don't cover me. So it's not the duty of ZNBC not to be scared. But as I always say, and let me borrow the words of Kambwili. I've got no credit in my mouth. I just speak what comes into my mouth. Like Rolla also said, if you can't tell somebody in their face when you are the two of you, then you are a coward. I speak what I speak. Sometimes Rolla Miti gets scared on my behalf. All right, as a big sister, of course, it's normal. But I'm accountable to what I said.
Yeah.
There are too many
Thank
cadres.
you so much.
There are too many cadres of PF in that ZNBC of theirs. Too many cadres who are employed by the PF. Right now, I'm sure they cannot even get anything good and sensible out of this government because for them, their masters are out and they are not happy. I'm not scared and I'm not going to shy away from saying that those institutions are full of PF cadres. And we know them, we can point at them one by one. When we mention these things, others call us bitter. We are not bitter. We've been in this game. We know who's been there. We know how we're fighting, all of us. We are on the other side. They were inside there. We know how they were getting those jobs. We know how they were getting those promotions. So if they don't believe, if they never believed in Hakainde Hichilema when he was in the opposition, why should they believe in him today when he's in government?
Because it's their duty.
Come again?
They save the government of the day, not.
Yeah, but you serve the government of the day, but you must also understand. It's like you have to go and get their policies. You must understand. I must understand you. I must understand you for me to interact with you. If I don't understand you, I'm not going to manage. All right. For some of us, I've understood a lot of politicians, for instance. Let me speak about politics because I'm a political journalist. I do a lot of politics. I understand Kambwili very well. I understand Kalaba. I understand their church very well.
Kalani, it's a very important point you've just raised. You obviously political journalists. This is why I said at the beginning, the panelists have been meticulously chosen for a specific reason. So it's really good that you highlighted that point. Now, if I could just pause you just momentarily and address this issue. You were talking about how fellow scribes should perhaps use their initiative to go out there and look at what the government is doing, gather news and disseminate it. But what would you say to journalists? I've had quite a few journalists who perhaps work for ZNBC currently, and they've said that they don't have access to the right information. And sometimes it's quite embarrassing to see news reports referring to, according to the president's Facebook page, this is what happened. And I'm thinking, is this the new kind of reporting that is taking place? So what would you say to that? The president and his team are not availing the information that journalists require.
Linda, BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, they also quote the pages of prominent individuals. You can get information. Twitter, nowadays Twitter has got very good content. Trust me, most of the big guys are on Twitter. They're not even on Facebook, not even anywhere. So if one says you're only getting information from the president's page, that is also official. I, for one, I was writing most of my stories about President Edgar Lungu from his official Facebook page, because I know at least that is more official than anything else. That is the president speaking himself. Whether someone is writing for him or not, that is more official than information that is coming from another individual. So I would even relish that information on the president's Facebook page than anything else. So this is not new. Everybody, anywhere you go, every media institution, name them, Sabic, they get some of their content comes from a Facebook page of a prominent person. President,
thank you so
minister,
much. Yeah. Thank you very much, Kalani, for that very valid point. You look at the American president, what happened to Donald Trump when they confiscated his Twitter accounts. It's like he can't really disseminate whatever information he wanted to. Having said that, there's one, your response takes me quite nicely to my concern, my major concern actually. Take, for instance, when the president is visiting United Kingdom, he's in Brussels, he's at the Vatican. Who goes with him? Because my concern is Do we know who's writing this president's history? So let's say 30, 40 years down the line, our children and their children, they should be able to go to the library and find what the president was doing on the 12th of January 2022. But if he's just documenting what is happening in the country on his Facebook account, for goodness sake, Mark Zuckerberg could work up one day and was like, I've had enough of this, I'm taking it away. Like President Lungu, he just closed his account. And what happens to all that information? How do you respond to that?
Linda, right now, I would tell you that the president is just coming from, he was in the Vatican City. The president was in Brussels. He traveled with Zanis. Zanis, you go to Zanis, you find it, all the information is archived there. The second trip the president made, the president traveled with both ZMBC and Zanis. And the president has been traveling with all these institutions. But we must also not forget that the president has got a press team also at State House. There's a press office there. There are people that manage his accounts, Twitter, Facebook page. So he also moves around with them. So if there are more, if those guys are doing a better job and ZNBC finds it fit to quote from him, I wouldn't answer on their behalf, but on these trips, I would tell you that the president has been moving with Zanis. Like right now, the president was with Zanis. All right.
Okay.
So if they chose to quote the president from his page, probably the officials from either Zanis or ZNBC who traveled with him, they were sleeping on duty. That's all I can say.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now I can see Patrick is very eager to add his thoughts. Take a pick.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of information has been shared. And yeah, I feel like most of it is very insightful, but I think I agree with Laura's sentiments, with the fact that a lot of people on the ground really feel that information sharing from the UPND government has been very, very slow. And it's really concerning really to see certain information that should be shared from whoever is the UPND spokesperson being shared by different, social media pages before information is actually released from the UPND spokesperson. I think that's what people on the ground are saying. And it's not just that people are listening to a wave and everyone is chiming in, but it's actually listening to the people that are saying factual things. And what people are saying right now is information is very slow. And it seems that there's a lot of people from the UPND that are speaking. And people are wondering like who's actually in charge, who's meant to be the spokesperson. If you have, 5 people from the UPND releasing information. Like, I like what Laura said before, if somebody is a spokesperson of the party or a representative of the party, then they should be disseminating information about the party, as opposed to having people disseminating information that's not even out from the actual spokesperson. And so it feels like people on the ground are saying information is coming slow from the UPND government, and the UPND government actually needs to quicken their steps to actually disseminate this information. And I feel like the slowness in the disseminating of information is actually leaving a vacuum for all these other political parties to actually take advantage and start spreading falsehoods and fake news. And this is clearly evident. If you're on social media and if you're actually reading this, it's very evident that they're now taking advantage of that vacuum, that space, to now spread false information. So I feel like the UPND government really needs to get to the forefront of this and actually be the ones that are spearheading information with transparency, without leaving a vacuum for other people to actually create false news. Because what that is actually doing is there are people that really can't cipher information very well, and whatever they see on social media, they believe it. And so there are a lot of people on the ground that are starting to believe like all these things that are being, these falsehoods that are being spread by other media entities because they can't decipher information. So my advice to the UPND government is to actually be in the forefront, get in the forefront of this, and actually disseminate information clearly to the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you would like to add to that, Mr. Kawana, please do so, together with this question. How do you think the government can work in partnership with the fourth state to reduce corruption and improve leadership, as well as reducing fake news that Patrick alluded to?
Well, the government is willing to work with the fourth estate and is working with the fourth estate. But I think the help that can come from the fourth estate is to ensure that they report what is practical and what is real. I mean, it doesn't help anybody for them to report fake stories and rumors and insinuations and expect government to take action. And that is why they feel that some of the things they bring out actually is not being taken, it is slow. Because you bring out rumors, you want to paint people black, and this is what led, for example, to His Excellency the President cautioning the media the other time that they mustn't subject themselves to, the adage of he that pays the piper calls the tune, where the corrupt elements begin to give them resources so that they begin to paint them as victims, and yet they are the villains. And these are the people that abuse public funds. These are the people that store public money. But then the media now picks them up and begins to present them as victims of an unfair crusade against corruption, which is not even a crusade against corruption. So the media has a critical role to play, and that is to report that which is factual, to report exactly what transpired, to report exactly what is transpiring, and to report exactly what is given out as information by law enforcement agencies. But this idea of always wanting to twist the information, always wanting to bring in a side agenda, always wanting to propel a certain propaganda which is financed, fueled, and a narrative that is done by the actual people themselves, the criminals themselves, I must add, then it doesn't help the country. So the media are the ones that are helping everybody. The country and the government is helped by the media, and they do so by reporting factual.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Now, what do you think is going wrong? Is it a lack of training, or is it a lack of mentorship? This is why I thought I bring this incredibly rich pedigree of past, even though people say once a journalist, always a journalist or a broadcaster, but they have such incredible experience that perhaps the young people who are in the New Dawn media team could benefit from. So we're going to start thinking about education and maybe learning from people who've done it before. So I'm going to add Chavala Chimpamba, who is an ex-broadcaster, ZNBC broadcaster, and then Chavala, welcome to TV Bakwetu, and thank you so much for coming. Now, I want to find out, how did you get into journalism? How did this come to be? And just tell us about this experience.
Well, I joined ZNBC in 1988. I was actually came straight from college, journalism college, straight into a job. Those days, we used to have attachment. I was on placement at ZNBC for a month, and I graduated on a Friday, and the then director was Richard Sakala. He said to me, "You're not resting. ZNBC is very impressed with you. You're starting a job." And I was starting a job on Monday. So I don't know if, those days you probably just, people poached like maybe trained journalists straight into a job. So, and that's also maybe another question I would ask maybe Mr. Kawana is, how are they training, how do they intend to train the journalists? Like to even maybe like the journalists, how are they going to, train them? What policies do they have to have trained journalists in the institutions?
Thank you very much. Mr. Kawana, over to you. Over to you, sir. Did you hear the question?
No, please repeat it. I'm sorry, I'm in between 3 meetings.
I completely understand. You have been working all day and you literally just raced home.
No, Mr. Kawana, I was saying, yes, sorry, Mr. Kawana, I'll repeat my question. I was saying, I was actually, I went from my journalism, from being a trained journalist, I went straight into a job and were actually poached from college. So I was saying, what is your government doing in, like giving the youths, like even those who are training as journalists, giving jobs? Are you thinking of poaching them from colleges, or what is your policies on that?
Well, the reality on the ground is that there are a lot of young people that are unemployed. And there's also a lot of trained journalists that are unemployed. So even those that are finishing straight from college are going to join into a market that is saturated even by those that finished way before them. And there are also greener opportunities, and there's a crisscrossing of journalists from one media institution to another looking for greener pastures. So I cannot say that we are going to go to a position where we will be able to poach students straight from school. Remember, when your days, when you were being poached, it is at the time that first there was not a proliferation of media houses, and also the journalism course itself was not a popular course. Most people are doing teaching, nursing, and very few are doing journalism. That is why the market was so much that they even had to follow you in your last year and poach you. But today, there are so many journalism schools, and there are so many journalists who are out there who are even working as volunteers. If there's an area where you have a lot of volunteers, it's in journalism. So unfortunately, I cannot claim here that we're going to poach people straight from colleges. It is not possible because the market is just as it is, and the jobs are as few as they are, and everybody will have to compete, whether you're coming straight from school or you've been out of school for some time. But let me just add one little thing here, in that and I know this is a very unpopular position, and I've been shot left, right, and center by most media owners, and by the way, most of them are my personal friends. And they've shot me down and they've told me off, but I want evidence. The kind of salaries they are giving to their media personnel is what is bringing danger to the country, because a hungry journalist is a danger to society. So a hungry journalist will propagate that which the person wants him to propagate is going to pay. The media owners are paying the journalists peanuts. The salaries of the journalists are nothing to talk about or to take home. They are totally peanuts. And yet the media owners, they make some money. And like I said, because they are my friends, I speak with authority that they make money. I see how they buy toys for themselves, a little BMW here, a little Benz here, a little plot here, sometimes even getting girlfriends' houses. But they will not pay their workers well. And so I keep demanding that, look, gentlemen and ladies, let's change this attitude. Let's pay the journalists good amount of money. When the journalists are paid good amount of money, you enhance the professionalism. The lesser you pay them, the more you are throwing away professionalism. They have said to me, you, Kawana, you cannot talk to us about paying our people well. You are government, you are the biggest advertiser. We survive through advertising, and you don't give business to us. I have pledged to them. But the attitude of this government is different. We are going to see to it that equal opportunities for business in terms of advertising and so on is given, including to the private media and not just the public media. So we'll do our part. Also, you do your part. Beneficiary at the end of the day is that young lady, young man with the puppet, so that they're able to write that which is true.
Thank you very much for your response. Is the government doing anything in particular to ensure that salaries for journalists are going to be decent?
Yes, government has not only expressed concern about the meager salaries the journalists are getting, but also two issues. The minister is in talking terms with her counterpart at Ministry of Labor to look at two crucial things. Number one, to look at the minimum wage for journalists. Number two, to look at the important need of journalists to belong to a union. Are you aware that journalists in the public, in the private media do not belong to any union? Nobody speaks for them. Yet they have the right to be represented. So these issues are being looked at very critically by my minister and her counterpart at the Ministry of Labour.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I would like to bring in Miss Miti to see if you have anything to add to that. Does that satisfy you? The government is going to do this? And also, Mr. Kawana, can we hold you to a time frame? What are we talking about? 3 months, 6 months? When is the minister going to announce this? And when can we send you a text and say, please, sir, come and tell us that you've actually achieved that?
The talks are ongoing. The talks are ongoing. You know, it's a tripartite arrangement. It's about the government, the employees, and the employers. So the talks are ongoing. I cannot give a time frame, but I can assure you that it is soon enough. I can also assure you that the determination is real and that the minister on this matter stands steadfast to see to it that our scribes get that which they deserve.
Well, Laura, are you satisfied with that response?
I would certainly hope so. Something that has always worried me is what Mr. Kawana is talking about, how the media industry in Zambia is full of slave labor. You have radio stations that pay their staff in cash. They do not pay them every month. We who work in areas where, for example, we have maybe press conferences or we're being interviewed, you will find that you have these young journalists who are so desperate for transport refund. And that transport refund is really wrong, because if I'm giving you the transport refund to cover me, you're going to cover me the way I want you to be covered. And yet it has become so institutionalized. If you speak to the young people, you find, or the journalists generally, you find that they really would not survive if they did not get these transport refunds. So as a result, you find one young person running from this story to another, not because they want to cover the story, and but because at the end of the day, maybe they'll have made 150 kwacha or 300 kwacha. And then what they'll then do is just pick up they'll pick up speeches, no analysis, nothing. You exactly as someone spoke it, including the typos and all. So we have a big problem on that one. We have a big problem as well in training. So it would seem that at a certain point, anybody could be a journalist. If you follow back and find out how people entered the media space, you wonder. I'll end up by talking about, for example, listen to morning talk radio in Zambia. If you're driving down going to work, you keep switching from radio to find some kind of in-depth analysis. The stories is, the journalists are cracking jokes. They have not researched. They have not done their background work. I agree with Mr. Kawana. One, there has to be training, but two, owners of media houses, if they can't pay their journalists, should close down. It's better for us to have 3 or 4 radio stations that can pay well, so that we have proper analysis. Because this very, very low analysis or very, very superficial reporting, sometimes dangerous reporting, is what gets fed to millions and millions of people. And I find that the Lusaka radio stations are the worst. When you travel out into the provinces, I find that, I don't know why, but the journalists there are much better. When they're interviewing you, they've done their research. Lusaka, Lusaka is a mess, So I'm really hoping that, yes, what Mr. Kawana is saying is going to happen. There have to be rules. There have to be minimum salaries. There has even to be an end to this idea of sending journalists to do work with no transport or no transport money.
Interesting. I'm going to ask Mr. Katwishi to give your view on that, and then just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you trained as a journalist, and perhaps what you feel is missing in today's journalists, whether in training or experience. You're muted, sir.
I do beg your pardon. Sorry about that. A lot has been said on this forum, and I've been following keenly on what has been discussed. I think I'll start with the training aspect. I'll start with myself. I came from a teaching background, and then I was poached by the then Lazarus Kanyungus, the Frank Mutubilas, and the Peter Mwembas into ZBS then, which was at the time transforming from ZBS to ZNBC. And during our time, it was so interesting because what was happening is we were being attached to one particular trainer within the media institution to say, this is going to be your mentor, who you're going to run with for the next 6 months, for instance. So I was attached to one particular person, and I'm learning from that particular person. And they used to call it to say, this is your husband, or this is your wife, but put it this way, this is your mentor. This is the person you're going to learn from for the next 6 months. Don't leave him. Every time he gets up, you get up. He's going for an assignment, you follow him, and that's how come to date people are able to still remember these names of the Chalakatwishis of this world, the Chavala Chimpampas of this world, because of the background we were coming from. We never shunned the old timers. And unfortunately so, these times I'm talking about, these are times when the Thabo Kawanas and first of all, Thabo, congratulations, Director Kawana, for your appointment.
Thank you, sir. So I must mention to everyone here that actually, Mr. Chalakatwish was my teacher at Osaka Boys. So I'm saying,
really?
Yes, he taught me. He was my teacher at Osaka Boys.
Amazing.
Oh my God.
Oh,
I was waiting for him to say it on his own. I'd rather he says it. I taught a lot of people. I taught Harry Kalava, the DP president. I taught
wow. Now that I did not know.
Yeah, I did. I started quite young, actually, at about 16 years of age.
Oh, fantastic.
And I'm not shocked and surprised to see Director Kawana being media director and speaking.
You must be so proud. My student is the media director. Oh my goodness.
He's speaking the way I speak. If you listen to President Kalaba, he speaks exactly the way I speak. And I used to tell them, this is not English. This is not English. Speak it like the way the Queen's language is. Don't imitate. Be original. Be yourself. And that said, put it this way. Now you've invoked everything.
Yeah, go for it. We've invoked the spirits.
Yeah, let me put it this way. Understandably so, the UPND media is suffering. Understand why it is suffering. Here's a new party which hasn't got old-timer political prostitutes in inverted commas that have infiltrated in it. They're trying to find their feet. What do we do? They've got a sinkhole. They've got all these, they've inherited a government of problems. They're not sure where to go. They're not sure which direction to go. And the president is popular. And this is where the media should come in to say, how then do we help the presidency in order for this institution to survive, as opposed to shooting bullets without providing, solutions? For instance, I'll give you an example. The time that President Kaunda was running government, he had what is called morning breakfast, an interaction with the media.
Mr. Katwishi, I was eager to hear about those morning breakfast.
Yes.
Because I remember attending some press conferences with Doreen Mukanzo and those morning breakfast.
Yes.
Fresh air. Tell us about that.
That one was specifically for a particular reason, to interact with the journalist, for President Kaunda to know exactly what is going on the ground, for him not to be told lies by his ministers, his members of the Central Committee, for him to find out exactly what is going on. And those morning breakfasts were quite helpful for the president. I saw Anthony Bwalia, spokesperson for the president. He tried that, but all of a sudden he stopped. And this is what should happen. It should also happen within the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, where the minister has, periodical media briefings, interaction with the media, so that they understand where the media is coming from, what is happening on the ground, why you, the media people are you vote, you provided, you are a very strong instrument of government, very important instrument of government. Hey, this issue about the pay, Linda, has been a thing from time immemorial. It's been a thing which has been going on, low pay. It's been going on for a long time. But guess what? It's not the government of the day that is going to address this issue. It's us, the journalists. If we sit back and complain to say, I'm getting low pay, therefore I shall not do this, therefore I shall not do my research. No, it never used to work like that in our times. Ero Hickey, the first founding person of the first privately owned radio station, may he so rest in peace, he used to pay us, peanuts. But we never called it peanuts. It was at least something to take us as a conveyor belt. We were grateful he provided a conveyor belt of us being on the radio station. So what we did, we started using our common sense to say, what do I do? Hence, we found that there were sponsored programs where we used to go and knock at each and every privately owned company to say, who would like to sponsor a program, for instance, on good governance? With the UPND or UNDP, would like to sponsor a program on good governance. Can you do the write-up? How much is this? Presenters' fees came on. So we were surviving on presenters' fees from these sponsored programs. Njikata, the Njikata Fever, where I used to play music. That's how it was born. Because I didn't want to be fed, just complaining to say, I'm being given peanuts. Understandably so, yes. The media owners are paying the media practitioners peanuts. But the question is, why are they doing that? Because the licenses were given to the wrong people. There was a boom of licenses that were given to the wrong people who were not media, don't understand nothing but media. These were people that are businessmen. He's going in there as a business. I'm opening this station as a business entity.
Thank you.
Opening this as a business entity, I've got to make money.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Katwishi. Now, is there a way to regulate this, Mr. Kawana? Is a couple of questions from me based on what Mr. Katwishi has said. Is there a way to regulate this so that only the right people can actually open these media houses, not just media houses mushrooming left, right, and center? And also, pray tell, why has Anthony stopped that breakfast meeting with journalists?
Well, the government is on the trajectory where it is supporting media self-regulation. And the media are saying we want to self-regulate. And they're talking amongst themselves. They want recognition, the way you have the Lawyers Association of Zambia, the way you have the Doctors Association. They are saying they also want licentiate in as far as media is concerned. Now, we can only provide the environment and they do what they want. If they want media self-regulation, we support them. Why has Anthony stopped the breakfast shows? Why didn't pay the number yake? Because I'm not Anthony.
Okay. Sorry, you paused a little bit there.
Yeah, so I was saying that I wouldn't know why Anthony has stopped the breakfast shows, but I can only imagine that it is because he's very busy. State House is not easy to work at. Your work starts as early as 05 and it ends as late as 22 hours. You are working throughout. That is why you see that the people who work at State House, before long, they start looking like they've got bended backs. You should see how class Wanamasaga looks nowadays. It is showing you that there's a lot of work there. It is different. For me, for example, my role is to speak. So I spend the whole week, I even interchange. This week, I'm on radio stations. The following week, I'm on television stations. But I speak throughout because that is my role. My role is to speak. But Anthony's role is also a bit more than just being spokesperson for the president. There's a lot of work that they do there at State House. So I can imagine that time no longer really allows him to have that opportunity. But I always avail myself to the media. If they want me on every breakfast show every day, I avail myself. And I think the media can attest to the fact that
I can.
Yes, I'm the most available person.
Absolutely.
Even my children tell me off now that, the public can't have all of you. We also need time, but, we have the country to do it. So we are available. And for our colleagues, we must understand also that they've got many other duties to do. But for us, this is our duty.
President Kaunda had a country to run, but he still carried out those famous breakfast
Equally,
mornings.
President Hakainde Hichilema has done the same. He has started a program where he appears. For him, he's taken it a step further. President Kaunda faced the journalist, and he visioned that the journalist will ask him the questions on behalf of the people, thereby giving him a feel of what the people are saying. President Hakainde says, no, nobody will ask on behalf of the people. Let the people talk. So he goes on radio and opens the phone lines, and the people call him directly. And therefore, there is no representation of what the people feel. It is the people talking to the president. And they have started this. We've already done Radio Phoenix. We are moving to another radio station within the course of next month. And that other month will be on another radio station. So President Hakainde Hichilema is getting to heights that have never been charted before, and these remain unprecedented.
Definitely, that is most definitely unprecedented. And also just the fact that he allows the audience, the listeners, to phone in, because that could go horribly wrong very quickly. So that is an amazing thing. Now, Mr. Zulu, welcome to TV Bakwetu. This is your very first time. I know Mr. Kawana has been here before. Could you kindly just tell our audience a little bit about yourself? Because I wanted to have a balanced conversation from the older generation to the current reporters like Kalani, and then to the legends like Chavala Chimpampa, Chela Katwishi, and to experts, media and political experts like Mr. Kawana and Miss Laura Miti. Kindly tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing now. We seem to be having a little bit of feedback. Okay, that's fine.
Thank you very much, Linda. I think I've had a problem. The audio has not been very good. I've not been hearing so much of what has been discussed, but I have an idea. Thank you very much for calling, inviting me. I'm a diplomat. I started off as a tourism promotions manager for Zambia National Tourist Board at that time. I had a program on ZNBC, which I was running as a picket tour to promote local tourism for our local people. So one time I went in Luangwa Valley, and KK was also on holiday there.
Mm-hmm.
I was not a journalist, but I was interested. I requested to interview the president for my program on ZNBC. Mm-hmm. So we did it at Mfue, at Chimfule Lodge. And when it was beamed to the country, I came back. I one day went home for lunch. My maid told me that you had a call from a Mr. Kaunda. So I did not know who Mr. Kaunda was. Mm-hmm. So I waited for 14 hours as Mr. Kaunda promised to call again. Mm-hmm. Then the next day, 14 hours, there were no cell phones then. There was just land phones. So I was waiting on the phone to wait for that call. 14 hours on the dot, a telephone call came, and it was a familiar voice. Mm-hmm. Hello, is that young Zulu? I said, yes. Says, this is Kenneth Kaunda. Mm-hmm. Will you have time tomorrow to come to State House? How could I refuse? I said, definitely, Your Excellency, I'll be there. So I went there. Found at the gate a senior journalist in the name of Nafi Nyarugwe waiting for me as press assistant to the president. He took me up. That was the first time I was entering the office of the president. What he told me startled me up to this day. He said, in my search for talent, I have discovered that you can help us in the Far East. I want to send you to Australia.
Wow.
My God. Then he called his secretary, Mrs. Sleep. She came in, he drafted a letter to appoint me Zambia's representative to Australia, specifically for tourism. I went to Australia as a diplomat in 1986 and was there for 10 years. But before we went there, we're talking, I'm not a journalist. I'm looking and listening to all journalists. So we have got to look at the history of free press as against what is happening today. I think the press was more free under Kenneth Kaunda, one-party state, because I remember when some journalists wrote something against UNIP, Parliament, the speaker would call the journalists to Parliament to go and apologize. I remember one particular apology that was made by the Times of Zambia under Nafi Nyarugwe as editor-in-chief. He had written something that was not palatable to the system, to the one-party state. And he was meant to apologize that I, Nafi Mishet Nyarugwe, editor-in-chief of both the Times and Sunday Times of Zambia, do hereby apologize for the vulgar language that appeared in my paper that caused affront to the sacrosanct of this house. But when he left Parliament, he went to do exactly the same comment that he was meant to apologize. Because journalists are not newsmakers. They convey news. They work with the government. They are the fifth or fourth estate. Any thriving democracy will thrive with a vibrant press, a vibrant media. It came to get to where it is now when multi-party democracy, President Chilula came in. Journalism was spoiled because
how do you think, Mr. Zulu, how do you think things can improve in a nutshell? And then I will bring I'll bring in Madam Miti to comment. How do you think the New Dawn government can improve the state of journalism in the country? Despite the fact that it's important that journalists self-assess, self-govern, and self-censor, you don't really want the government to be too involved in what journalists are doing, really, or journalism institutions. But how can they help, do you think, to improve the quality of journalism in Zambia?
Well, first it starts with the leader. President Hakainde has made profound statements to free the press. He has told journalists in this country to feel free to write.
Are they free, do you think? Are they free indeed?
Well, the president has given them, has opened that please feel free to write, but write responsibly. Responsibly.
Right. Thank you so much.
Journalists, if you look at, if they do something that is irresponsible, they caused a problem in Rwanda. It started from journalists.
Yeah.
That radio station there,
yeah,
went and brought fire to Rwanda.
The pen
which
is
we will
mightier
never
than
forget.
anything. Absolutely.
Indeed.
Thank you so much.
So the president has said it to journalists. Don't be afraid, write, but write responsibly. So that's what
Thank
we're
you very
waiting for.
much.
Fake
Thank you.
news will not be there. Fake news will not be there if journalists write responsibly.
Thank you very much. Miss Miti, any comments
I'm good.
on what Mr. Zulu said? Is the press free indeed?
I would say as free as it's been in a long time.
Okay.
So in how the government can help the press, I think the first step has made, I agree with Mr. Zulu, in just freeing it. My sense is the way to develop or to make the press arena professional is to free ZNBC, Times of Zambia, and the Daily Mail. These three government media houses tend to employ probably the best journalists, but also they have systems. They have institutional memory of how things are supposed to be done. If we are getting good, balanced news from ZNBC, a lot else will be wiped away, because no matter how we play it, ZNBC reaches the most people and still has this traditional respect. So freeing these three media houses, ensuring that it's run professionally and that it is not being forced to be the voice of whoever is in power is very important. The rest, I think, is in the hands of the media houses. Like I said earlier on, we have a problem with who's being hired. Sometimes young people are being hired on their music choice, on their accents, on I don't know why they're being hired, essentially. So we need I'm convinced that we need a few houses, media houses, doing so well that others will fall in line.
Thank you so much. Those accents, my goodness, you are hired because your tongue twirls in a particular way, which is ridiculous. I had a question for you. Now, do you think ZNBC is state-owned or it's as biased as it has ever been? I'll ask the same question to Mr. Kawana and yourself, Ms. Miti.
It's better. But I think bad habits are difficult to let go, but it's certainly better. You know, that you can see the news in which we don't see the president. You can watch the news. You see, ZNBC had become painful, almost physically painful to watch, because it was just repeating the message of the ruling party. In fact, it became a campaign tool. I think right now
they're still repeating the message of the ruling party, because every time I've tuned in, I keep hearing President Hichilema said this and that. I was like, I thought the president said don't do that.
Yes, but like I say, the extent to which what was going on, you almost heard no other news. And you know, over time, if you listen to ZNBC, when we were growing up, you'd hear news, you'd hear world news, proper analytical world news. Right now, things can happen in the world and you won't hear them because you're busy, you're never gazing, busy talking about yourselves only. And as a result, you have a population that is not analytical, is not sure of their place in the world. Things can be happening, whether it's Malawi, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand. Sometimes the news story should not be now we are switching to ZNBC and to BBC, and there's just this reel, of voices from the BBC. So we need a lot more analytical reporting. And I tend to believe the government that they'd like ZNBC to be free, but the journalists have to push boundaries. Fair reporting, but it's the analysis where we are weak. There's too much just repeating. So said. So said. We also heard them. We tuned in. So you don't have to tell us what someone said. What did what they say mean? Link it to history. Analyze a story. Follow up a new story, and what does the law say? That's what we need journalists for, not just parroting what everybody said on a particular day.
Yeah, according to the president's Facebook page, that really was painful for me.
Yes, according to the president, even the opposition leaders, so said. They can say something really ridiculous, but then it's reported as said with very little analysis. Why don't you link what this person said to something historical before, something that was not true and that kind of thing, or simple analysis. And the analysis has to be fair and objective.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kawana, any comments on that?
Well, I feel that ZNBC has tremendously improved and they're doing extremely well now because we're able to get divergent views via ZNBC. I remember very well, I was out and I was just getting into the country, and it was a day that about 7 political parties, the opposition political parties, held a press briefing at, I think it was Ridgeway Hotel, if I'm not mistaken, or is it still called Holiday Inn? And I didn't know what they said, and I needed to know what they had said. And I switched on my TV, tuned to ZNBC when the news came, and I picked up what was said by the opposition political party. And I think that is what we were looking for. And that is what the president meant when he said at his first ever press briefing that he had given them carte blanche, that he had given them editorial independence, and that they should never feel obligated, that they must report everything that the president does. If that day he wakes up for exercising, he drives his bike, his headline, you can't do that. You must give an opportunity to everybody to be heard, including those in the opposition, and that's what they are doing. So I think there's room for improvement, but we must give them kudos. We must encourage them where they're doing well, and this is one aspect they're doing well, and we must encourage them. Even Sunday interview, you have seen that opposing voices are brought on Sunday interview. It was impossible to get yourself on Sunday interview. I know what we went through to try and get President HH in opposition there to be on Sunday interview. I also know what we went through to try and just get political advocates for UPND to air the ZNBC. I dealt with that personally, and they gave me what you call graveyard shifts, where you are told your first advert will play at 23 hours. Who wants it at 22? But I said, anyway, as long as it doesn't be.
But Mr. Kawana, you find that during the last few weeks of campaign, there was this saying "Akuna kulala," so people did watch those adverts. Hence why.
Yes, we advertised the advert. We advertised the advert that at 23:10, watch the you will see a change. So we advertised the advert.
Lovely. Now, my last question on that same aspect is: so, do you think the media effectively covers government policies, or do you think they just do their own thing because they want to grow numbers? And do you expect them to cover government policies?
The government has a media department, which is ZANIS. ZANIS is actually for a government wing, more or less like a PR wing for the government. ZNBC is a public broadcaster. It is owned by the people of Zambia, paid for by the people of Zambia. And that is why the president was very categorical to tell them that save your master, save the people who paid for you. So ZNBC is not owned by the government. ZANIS is owned by the government. It is the role and primary responsibility for ZANIS to cover the government, to bring out the issues. That's why their existence is in every district. And you should watch the reforms that are going to ZANIS. There's a new director there, a veteran journalist, but the Roy Said director there. And you should see the reforms that are going to ZANIS. Very soon you'll see, and you'll be impressed.
Thank you very much. Mwelwa, welcome.
Linda, sorry, not to break protocol, apologies.
Mm-hmm.
There's one point, Linda, yes, Linda Rolla, sorry, Rolla had raised,
Mm-hmm.
that despite the president giving them a green light to report, somehow they're still doing the same thing. And a lot of people still think that ZNBC is reporting the same way. It goes back to what I had raised, because people were doing the wrong things in the past, and it's still in their minds. They're just scared to do the right thing. Why? Because most of them are still protecting their jobs. They know if they do the right thing, they are scared. They think somebody's watching them. This is why sometimes you see them, even everything now. I've never seen in the history of ZNBC, just because the president is officiating a public event in Southern Province, and they had to cut the 13, 15 main news on ZNBC unheard of. Why? It's because they're scared. Yeah. There's so much fear because they politicize that institution to the extent that all of us as citizens stopped watching that institution. I don't want to bring in other countries, but if you go to Zimbabwe today, if you saw in Zimbabwe, the main broadcaster, and of course Chamisa was live. Chamisa had over 13,000 people following him on television, on his phone. Whilst the public broadcaster, which had the president there, there were only 91 people following. Why? It's because the people have lost interest in these media institutions, the public especially, because they are used to doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very aware that we are overshooting ever so slightly. So I'm kindly requesting that Mwelwa and Mr. Mkalevai make your contributions, please.
Good evening, or is it good night now? I don't know whether you can even say good evening. I think good night for some and good morning for others. But it's been an interesting talk, and I think probably my contribution is that from what I've picked up is that we have a problem with our education system, and it's just becoming very reflective in the journalism fraternity at the moment. Because I think what I've picked up, especially from Madam Laura, is there's no critical thinking. There's a reliance on Wikipedia, the schizophrenic accents. I call them schizophrenic accents because I still can't get around how somebody changes an accent every day. There's quite obnoxious tendencies. I think there was an interview I was watching earlier on where this journalist keeps telling the person he's interviewing, like, you haven't answered my question. I'm thinking, I thought we learn probing, in journalism, you probe and try and get the answer. But it's all these things, and the training hasn't graduated. The times have changed, to be honest. Media has changed. And unfortunately for us as the Zambian group, we are still under the spoon feeding, or the PF man as well. We're being spoon fed the information over and over again. And because we're being spoon fed, it's reflective. Nobody's chasing after the news. Nobody's asking the questions we need. And I think this is something we need to put the Ministry of Education to task for.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Womkeleway,
thank you so much.
Just straight into your comment, please. So
thank you. Thank you, Belinda. Thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be part and parcel of this important discussion, and good to see Vochela Katwishi. Good to see Bochavala. I mean, you guys, you did your job well, and we really miss you back in Zambia. We wish to have people like you today in our journalism today. There's this blame syndrome that I've noticed that is coming into our country. We point fingers, and yet we ourselves who are busy pointing fingers have done nothing to change the narratives. Instead, we want to point fingers and try to be politically correct. So I wish that we should do away with that and come up with practicable solutions where you are involved. You come in as the senior journalist or people who are professional, come to the table, give us your ideas. Zambian people, Zambian journalists need, and the other thing, Wolinda, was the payments of journalists. That's why you see them giving reports that are immature or premature, because they just rely on handouts coming from the very people who are being interviewed instead of them doing the professional job. They should do away with that. The government, Kawana, please help these gentlemen or this profession to be paid more money than what they are getting currently.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I promised the viewers that I'm going to read a few questions and comments. Let's do that very quickly as we close. I actually don't know what she's there for. Very uncomfortable to speak English, busy involving. My guess is this is what you'll find, that people converse amongst themselves and they're replying to each other's comments. And then we just kind of think, oh, what is that about? Let's have a look at that from Mary and Kosike. Okay. We'll move very swiftly on from that. Mary, behave, okay? This is a serious program. We'll move. Elias Mununga, I agree with Laura. UPND must streamline or coordinate communication. Okay, we have dealt with that. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Let's read another one. Mwelo, would you like to read that one for me, please?
Sometimes don't want to listen. When politicians tells us something, we usually refute what they say. That's they end up cheating, so they tell us what we want to hear.
Okay, well, now then, we could go on forever. The numbers are not dropping, but Mr. Kawana has been working really hard and everybody else has. So it's perhaps time to call it a day. He's very available and I'm really grateful that you're always there when we call, literally at the very last minute. And yesterday I was literally testing you and you passed the test. And Laura, incredible lady, thank you so much. You're always available. Chabala Chimpampa, Chela Katwishi. I don't actually know why. I always want to say Professor CJ, DJ Chela Katwishi. I should just stick to Chela Katwishi. This was your intro, wasn't it? When you was it Phoenix?
It was indeed my intro, but
yeah. So in my head, it's stuck. You see, this is a proper sort of way of presenting yourself. Well, thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll be working together in the near future. And who have I missed out? Patrick, thank you very much. Nice to see you. Kalani, it was a pleasure for you to sort of join us. Thank you very much. Womkelevai, excellent. Viewers, this has been a presentation of TV Bakwetu. Thank you so much for joining us. God bless you and God bless our country. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.